White Sox fans, welcome in. It's Sunday Funday with Sox on Tap. Johnny Nani here, joined by NWI Steve and Tony on Tap. We're talking about a White Sox series win this weekend, boys. Crack 'em. Cheers to that. Let's go.
Cheers, Jonathan. Cheers, Steven. It was a victorious weekend. I don't think we've had many shows, guys, where we get to all get together and talk about the White Sox taking a series on a Sunday Funday show. I feel like this has not happened very often, so I'm going to enjoy the victory beer. Steve, how you doing?
Hey, yo, boys, I'm doing great. Anytime the White Sox fucking go to Cleveland and get the job done there. You guys all know how I feel about the mistake by the lake. And I'm going to expand on these thoughts as we roll along this journey here tonight. But boy, does it feel good to just fucking kick them right in the dick.
I concur, Steve, and I'll just my opening monologue here of sorts will be: I'm not a Tim Anderson fan. I'm not a Michael Kopech fan. I'm not a Jesse Schultens fan. I'm not a Luis Robert fan. I'm a White Sox fan. And the White Sox won the weekend series over their division rival 2-3, and they won the season series 8-5 over Cleveland, spelled with 2 capital L's. And that is a team that is supposed to be contending for the division, but is also playing under 500 ball. And it feels good to be a White Sox fan right now, because go ahead and share the clip all you want. We'll get into that. That doesn't change the outcome.
As you so eloquently alluded to there, Jonathan, the fact that this piss-poor White Sox team, a team that I hate more than probably any White Sox team of my lifetime, and that is truly saying something. In the all apart 5 different decades I've been following this team, for them to effectively put the nail in the coffin of this Cleveland fucking team that I hate with every fiber of my being, goddamn, does it feel great. It really does, knowing that these fucking losers that were running their mouths off since yesterday, and with all that nonsense that happened, and we're going to get into that, and them getting a little chirpy on their social media like they tend to do, to know that the White Sox largely are going to be one of the biggest reasons why they are sitting on their fucking asses celebrating a 75th year without a World Series, and that mistake by the lake, piece of shit fucking city in Ohio. Fuck, it feels amazing. That's the one solace I think that I'm going to take from this piss poor season.
Yep. I can confirm. Go ahead and look at the name there. Go double check it on Steven's Twitter and X bio, whatever we're calling it these days. Confirmed Indians/Guardians hater. So there you go. Tony.
I don't know. I don't have much else to add. I think Steve's just sort of got out right in front of everything and blew the load real early on how he feels about the Cleveland Guardians. So, Johnny, I'll turn it over to you to do the formalities. Let's get into this episode.
Yeah. Before we start, make sure you subscribe to On Tap Sportsnet on YouTube. Jump in the comments there, and we can feature them on this show live. We can also do it from Facebook. Unfortunately, Twitter listeners can't see your comments through the StreamYard service here, so go over to Facebook or YouTube to jump in, join the conversation. Make sure to go and check out On Tap Sportsnet for all your Chicago sports, literature, and podcasting needs, and give us a follow on social media at Sox On Tap and at On Tap Sportsnet. All right, let's dive in. Weekend series, wild weekend in Cleveland. The mistake by the lake. White Sox take 2 of 3, as I mentioned in my opener there. That feels good, guys. Hey, as just building off my point there, I know this season has been what it has been. Very disappointing overall. I think we all had different expectations here, and especially supposed to be in a contention window and all of that. But that doesn't change the fact that I'm still going to celebrate a White Sox win, which we had today, which we had yesterday. So that means a weekend series win with some victory beers.
Yeah, we definitely have not had the opportunity to celebrate enough of these here over the course of the season. And I think we've dug pretty deep into the various reasons why. There's a lot of superficial reasons that you can easily see when you watch this team for more than 4 consecutive minutes. We've, just kind of gone over them ad nauseum here, but it does feel nice to have a weekend like this where things go well Friday night obviously did not start out well, and you're just kind of thinking, okay, well, we're in the doldrums here, the post-trade deadline, and there's going to be this dead lull right now. And they came out yesterday, obviously, put it to them pretty early, and then the extracurriculars happened, and they carried it over here today. Some people wondering, okay, is there going to potentially be a letdown now following everything that took place yesterday and a lot of the post-game commentary and the circus surrounding those events here? But Jesse Schultens, which we all thought was going to be the guy that was going to really kind of carry this rotation here for the last 2 months of the season, went out there, pretty effective today, was able to give him 6 innings of quality ball, cover 18 outs. Everybody knows I think that's kind of important. So he went out there, did his job, put the team in a position to win a baseball game. And it was really nice to see this Cleveland Guardians bullpen, not the White Sox bullpen, be the one to shit down their fucking leg in the 9th inning, and to see them play some fundamentally piss poor baseball, and to see Sox fans going out there and dragging that fucking tweet that they made last year during the playoffs of, oh, now everybody, you might not like the way we played. And I'm paraphrasing this.
Some of us are just seeing it for the first time.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Yeah. Enjoy that, you fucking bitches.
I should add on Jesse, the meme. I love it. Jesse, we need to cook with Ethan Katz. That's a Sox on Tap staple. But did you know Jesse Schultens in any outing this season has not allowed more than 3 runs? That's more than you could say for a lot of this rotation and pitching staff overall. So I just wanted to add that in. Jesse, we need to cook. We cooked today. That was good shit.
I'll echo what Steve said there. I was worried personally that they were going to sort of shit down their leg, the White Sox, after yesterday's extracurriculars. I was fully prepared as a White Sox fan to see that game, get away from them, and then Cleveland go take the series today. But that didn't happen. And as you guys have both said, we haven't had the chance to celebrate these victories enough this season. I think you guys also put it beautifully. Jesse Schultens has really stepped into this rotation, and it's a good change of pace to see somebody that wants to be here actually go out and take an opportunity on the mound, especially within this rotation this season, because no one's really grabbed the hold of it. I remember we go back to doing the season predictions show, guys, and I don't think outside of Lucas Giolito for a somewhat of a stretch could claim himself as the top of the rotation guy. But even Dylan Cease, look at the last start that he had through this thing. It's just good to see some decent starting pitching, and Jesse Schultens has been that guy now for, I think, what is it now, 2 or 3 turns through the rotation, guys. It's good to see something out of him. I don't expect him to be a mainstay in this rotation, but if he's somebody that we can get behind and root for when he's on the mound, what else can we ask for at this point as White Sox fans? We got to start somewhere.
Right. Yeah. And the overall result of this weekend, a lot of it, the home stretch of the season, is going to be playing spoiler because there is a fair amount of AL Central still left on the schedule. There are, we're out of it. We understand that. We know that is the direction that this team has chosen, given the trade deadline moves and just the record and place where we stand in the standings. But Cleveland fans, you got yourself a highlight reel clip this weekend. No doubt about it. Go ahead and play that all you fucking want. That doesn't change your standing in the standings. And I think you should take Michael Kopech's post-game quote a little more seriously than you have been. And we're not going to get bullied by a team that is also playing under 500 ball. You traded off Aaron Savali, so your own organization is already putting, lining up the nail, loading up the hammer on your coffin there. The White Sox are just helping hammer it in.
That's very beautifully put, Jonathan. And it is, you'll really love to see the White Sox actually, do some carpentry out there, putting the nail in that coffin for this Cleveland team. And it's so funny kind of seeing a lot of the chirping that was going on social media. I was out last night, so I didn't actually see this thing happen live. And then Anthony sent me a text, and I kind of got caught up on things a little bit here. And just seeing the way a lot of people were chirping, a lot of the Cleveland fans, and then even this morning.
Still shocked, Stephen, that you did not catch probably the most entertaining White Sox game all season. It's I mean, there's reasons that people get DFA'd and sent down to Barons on Tap, and this is definitely one of them.
I mean, listen, I had to make some choices last night, and that just happens sometimes. That's all I'm going to say. But seeing all these Cleveland fans chirping and everything, and then for the Sox to just go out there and just give them a nice big fuck you shit burger on top of it, you love it. You just love it.
I think that's a good summation overall of the weekend. But let's dive into the meat and potatoes of what the big talking point of the weekend is, and that's obviously the fight between Tim Anderson, Jose Ramirez on Saturday night that eventually led to an all-out brawl, a full-scale brawl, I would say that, because sometimes you see videos and it's like, the bullpen guys are running in, but everything's kind of dispersed by that point. This thing went on and on because it was very heated. So what were your initial reactions when you saw Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez squaring up at second base, quite literally hockey fight style, Tony?
Johnny, that was the first thing that came to my mind when Tim Anderson sort of steps away from being over Ramirez after the slide. And, Ramirez goes and puts his fingers basically in Tim Anderson's face, which, first off, for anybody who hasn't seen the clip, this is how this starts. I don't think there was any way, shape, or form that Tim Anderson instigated this. The fight itself is instigated when Jose Ramirez puts his dirty fingers in Tim Anderson's face. That's disrespect, number one. You don't do that to people. You're asking for something. And obviously Ramirez does come out on top here, but let's get the facts straight. I'm with two very important people who believe in facts only. So we're going to talk about the facts only here. Tim Anderson throws his glove down. He has to be watching a lot of hockey, Johnny. Maybe he caught up on Corey Perry clips because Corey's coming to the Blackhawks at the UC this season. And Tim Anderson throws the gloves down. You don't see that very often in a baseball game. So I love that. Timmy squares up. And then you had Elvis Andrus, who's seemingly the guy who is front and center for every giant baseball fight that ever ensues near second base. He's standing there, this guy, I don't know if he's got some sort of like pay-per-view access to these things, but great seats for this. And then Michael Kopech comes charging in there. I was just thrown off by the whole entire situation because you're used to this in the winter, Johnny. You're late fall. You're used to this type of thing just transpiring in your sporting event. But this was a nice little preview for hockey for me. I was very excited as this thing got underway. Unfortunately, we all know what happened. Jose Ramirez landed a falling shot, eyes closed punch on Tim Anderson, who may or may not have a weak chin. We're still working to confirm that. And he sort of hit the deck there. I thought, my initial reaction was Kopech should have had a better chokehold on Jose Ramirez at this point in time. And, maybe saved his boy some damage there. And Elvis Andrus needs to do some more there than just, sort of watching. In fact, at a certain point, I sort of felt like he stepped out of the way to let Timmy fall. So there's a lot to unpack there. I'll get your guys' sort of initial reactions of at least the beginning portion of this. I do have one last thing to say. Jason Benetti kept calling it a fracas. It's a fracas. And that was bothering me the entire time.
We're facts only podcast here. So, Steve, take it away with more facts.
Yeah. First thing here, Anthony, I kind of want to expand on your little point there about Michael Kopech. In the mood of last night being SummerSlam for WWE, Kopech really could have done a better job of getting a
can't imagine why Steve missed last night's White Sox game.
I mean, listen, things happen. Okay. I might've been out having a couple 2-3 pops as well. Some driveway beers, some things happened. It's part of life. It's okay. But Kopech, if you got Peacock, go back, watch the replay of SummerSlam yesterday. So this way in the future, should this type of thing happen, you can get a better, more firm chokehold on. Now, the thing I really want to dig into here is kind of Jose Ramirez's post-game commentary, talking about this all started because of a hard tag from Tim Anderson. You fucking bitch. A hard tag. That's what this is about. A hard tag. Oh, this is something he's been doing for a long time. He's been disrespecting the game, and this could get somebody hurt. A hard tag. A hard tag. This is what we're doing here. So you're not going to be able to provide for your family because of a hard tag. Kiss my fucking ass, you little bitch. I don't care if you've been one of the best 10 players in the sport for the last 7 or 8 years. That's some weak ass shit right there. And because of that, and because you want to cry like that, and your stupid ass little fan base wants to sit there and say that you were justified in putting your hand in Tim Anderson's face, starting this thing because of a hard tag, every bad thing in baseball that happens this moment forward deserves to happen to that shit franchise.
Just when we're examining facts only here, right? And he alluded to a hard tag, as you mentioned there, Steve. I don't believe Tim Anderson's tag was out of line and extremely hard or overly excessive in that regard. But if I remember correctly, MLB social media itself posted a little clip between a couple of brothers, the last name Lowe, a couple of weeks ago, where one applied a hard tag to the other, and they got up and laughed about it. So in Jose Ramirez's world, is MLB disrespecting its own game there?
And let's dig a little deeper into this disrespect portion here. You're going to talk about disrespecting the game because of a hard tag when you have a fucking teammate last year in the playoffs hits a home run off Garrett Cole and runs around the bases like he's carrying a baby, and you're going to talk and you're going to run your mouth about disrespecting the game of baseball because of a hard tag. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. Tony, I was kind of in the same arena as you in terms of, I thought this was hockey night in Canada. Hey, Saturday night, right?
It was like a great battle of Alberta.
Hockey night in Cleveland, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, that was kind of the same vibe that I got from it at first. But I will say, just overall, man, most entertaining the White Sox have been this year. I would say that was, I think, we go and look back at marquee games, so to say, nothing really stands out just because of the kind of malaise that they've been in, and how they've, let the season spiral out of control in what should be the last year of a contention window, so to say. So this was great entertainment on a Saturday night. I loved it. I'm also a big Elton John fan, so Saturday night's all right for fighting. Had to cue that one up on Touch Tunes at the bar after I saw the fight going down. I thought it was awesome. Everybody, it was funny because I was sitting there at my local watering hole and watching the game, and I was one of the few paying attention because there was a little festival going on there, food truck, DJ, all of that kind of stuff. So then White Sox weren't really the main attraction at the bar, but then this breaks out and everybody's tuned into the TV now. It's not just me. Everybody's tuned in. Everybody's dialed in. And we're laughing. Sure, we're laughing at Tim Anderson because it was a moment. Like I said, I'll concede that as much. Cleveland Guardians got themselves a great clip. Cleveland Guardians fans to go and talk about that. But does that erase anything that went down overall, results-wise, for your team? Oh, and guess what? Now your star player, one of the top 10 players in the sport, like Steven said, over the last 6-7 years, is looking at potential suspension time coming up here. Go ahead, blame it on Tim Anderson if you want. He was the instigator of sorts. There's no instigator penalty in baseball, though. By the way, no official one. So that's going to come down to the league office's ruling. Either way, though, you're looking at Jose Ramirez, your best player, being out for some period of time after this. And that goes back to our carpentry point. We can start hammering in a little bit further here as White Sox fans.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the carpentry. It's great that we're able to put nails in coffins when we weren't able to build our home's foundation properly. So at least we're learning as we go on here.
Isn't that more masonry than carpentry, though?
Well, the framework of the house, maybe not the foundation. Poor word choice on my part there, Stephen. Thank you.
We gotta get Steve Stone on here to really define what's going on with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you gotta get the Steve Stone building company. Maybe that could be our sponsorship opportunity for next season.
There we go. Now we're thinking.
Or actually, no. It would probably be the Steve Stone remodeling company.
Right.
at this juncture.
Yeah, well, Jerry Reinsdorf did just purchase a plot of land over near the United Center. Do the White Sox players and staff go out there and sharpen up their carpentry skills with whatever he has
Like
planned over
Habitat
there?
for Jerry's Humanity?
Yeah, I don't know. They're already employed, so you don't have to go externally, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
That's
I mean,
very
we
true.
we do know if there's one thing we know in this world, Jerry Reinsdorf does love to keep labor costs low.
Facts. We're a facts only podcast.
Would Eloy
here,
get
folks.
hurt during this? Though?
Well, he played
That's what I'm
today,
worried
so
about.
that was kind of blown out of proportion by that's the thing that about an event like this, it catches the attention of the sports world. So you get the
Yes.
drive-bys coming in, the Yankees fans of the world, trying to say that it's hilarious that Eloy is hobbling around. And sure, that whatever, that's a very That's So White Sox thing. I'll give you that. But if you follow the White Sox and you're tuned in at all, you know that Eloy was dealing with the heel issue, right? From Friday night, even. That's why he was partially, out of the lineup, and then he played today. So I don't know. You didn't actually get injured. I think he just is battling through what he had already established as an injury, and he's got multiple of them going right now, just like many of the White Sox do.
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit blown out of proportion. I mean, he did have a hit in the next inning. The clip itself is sort of funny, seeing Eloy hop out of there. There was a lot of funny moments where you can pick on the White Sox in this. And Johnny, you brought up a great point, and something that I wanted to get to is how this captured basically the nation on a night where you had a lot of different things going on in sports. I believe you had Jake Paul fighting a pay-per-view fight with was it Nate Diaz? You've got Steve's favorite event of the summer, SummerSlam, going on. It's a White Sox AL Central matchup with the Cleveland Guardians, and this thing became the face of Saturday night in America. All over social media, you've got this clip shared far and wide. And sort of my first thoughts with this were, because there's a lot of takes from people who have come out there and said, you've never watched a fight, you've never seen a fight before, Tim Anderson didn't get KO'd. As soon as Barstool and some of the other larger media accounts got a hold of this clip, it was evident that they had declared Tim Anderson the loser of this battle, and rightfully so. He hit the deck, right? We can't argue that. However, I think this is going to do a lot of, I don't know if I want to call it damage, but damage is probably the best word that I can use here, to what Tim Anderson is remembered for. We're only a few short years removed from Tim Anderson potentially being remembered in, baseball lore for hitting the walk-off at Steve, an event that you and I were at out in Iowa. That was the most impactful Tim Anderson clip that was out there. You saw every
It'll be 2 years this coming Saturday.
Yeah, you saw every news organization write about Tim Anderson getting punched by Jose Ramirez. And we're not even talking everybody that normally follows the White Sox. You've got Fox News, CBS, local, everybody is writing about this fight. This was a moment that will go down in White Sox history forever. And it's going to include Tim Anderson getting dropped by Jose Ramirez. So, Johnny, as you said, Cleveland will have that. It doesn't change what happened on the baseball field. We'll remember the wins. Believe me, we will remember these wins because I fucking hate Cleveland, and I know you guys share that as well. But I do think that in the grand scheme of things, people will always remember this, look back, and laugh. And you can see the attention that the Yankees fans get when they go and throw out there, and Eloy hobbles out of this. It was sort of semi-embarrassing for the White Sox. I thought that Michael Kopech handled the post-game interview very well. And I don't even he got enough credit for handling it well, because you saw top content producers in the city of Chicago purposely misquoting him for more reaction and likes on social media, which is absolutely fucking bonkers. In most professions, when you fuck up like that, you issue an apology. Some of these people doubled down on what they were saying out there. because the White Sox have been so bad this season. That's how bad it is at this point, that everybody wants to get their licks and kick this team while they're down. I thought Kopech did a wonderful job responding to this. If you actually listen to his quotes and quote him correctly, you'll understand what he's saying. And second to that is, this team not only held on to win that game on Saturday, they came out and played a really good baseball game today and did potentially put the nail in the Cleveland Guardians' coffin for this season here. So I thought for at least one point this season, I was proud to be a White Sox fan because of what transpired after that incident. So that's what I wanted to double in on.
I texted you late night last night, Tony, and that was kind of a point that I was driving home. And this is a little bit of a point of pride for me, because what have we been asking of this team? Just go back and you could run multiple clips of our kind of final thoughts on this podcast over the summer, that we want to see some fight. We want to see some pride, passion, all of that. And we want to see some wins, right? And guess what? On Saturday night, the White Sox, whatever, no matter how much the visuals may not look like it, they quite literally showed some fight. Yeah, whether you get knocked out in that or not, it happens. Sometimes in battle, you lose soldiers along the way. And then they won a baseball game after that. And then you've got guys sticking up for each other after that in the post-game interview. Even someone like Elvis Andrus saying, we've got Timmy's back. We all love him in here. And there might be issues below the surface, all of that. But for one night, I was proud. I was proud of these guys sticking up for each other and showing some fucking heart. It feels like this team hasn't been a cohesive unit all year.
But Johnny, everybody wants to know why nobody else went after Jose Ramirez. I mean, these are tweets that are out there,
right? Yeah,
that's people that are employed at NBC Sportsnet.
Right, I was gonna get into that too. How do you guys think the rest of the team? I saw a lot of people trying to just drive the narrative, and I get it. I understand. It's been frustrating as a White Sox fan. Follow this team, how they operate from top to bottom. How do you think the rest of that reaction goes? I agree with you guys in that Michael Kopech could have gotten a better, hold off on Jose Ramirez in that scrap there. Elvis Andrus could have stepped in there. But when things kind of came back and recirculated towards the, dugouts there, I saw Yaz right in there. I saw the newly called up Lane Ramsey towering over a bunch of Cleveland Guardians there. I saw Pedro Grifol was ready to go at it with a Cleveland Guardians coach. I believe that was their third base coach, Sarbaugh. And Pedro, I'm still probably on the, these guys got to go in terms of just overall management and stuff this year. But shit, that was a little more fight than he showed or displayed all year in anything that he had done. So I don't know. Overall, the response, sure, physically in that split second frames there that you have right after the scrap might not look the prettiest, but overall, it's not like the White Sox let the whole rest of their team get fucking shellacked by these Guardians. It wasn't like they were just, wailing on them Bronx Tale style when the gang beats up the bikers that come into the bar, right?
Yeah. And, Anthony, one of the things that you touched on there that I kind of want to expand on a little bit, you've talked about, that kind of be one of the few points of this season here about being proud to be a Sox fan. And the way I was kind of thinking about this is, it's like a situation where you have your own family and there's always all kinds of internal squabbles and internal battles that happen in there. And you can say something about one of your family members, but when somebody else does and they say something or they try to take some sort of action, motherfucker, you can't do that. Only we can do that. Nobody hates the White Sox more than White Sox fans. Let's just be real about this. All right. But the minute, and I didn't realize that Yankee fans were getting in on this. That explains what that greasy, disgusting smell was. And they're coming to infest the city here over the next couple 2-3 days. So I wasn't aware of that. But it's like, the minute you want to get in on this, motherfuckers, that ain't going to fly here. So to see the fan base, and from what I saw on Twitter.com on the X machine, seeing a really united front amongst the fan base, going after Jose Ramirez and his, cheap bullshit, trying to act as if Tim instigated this, and, those loser Guardian fans trying to run their fucking mouths, and seeing Sox fans band together actually for once, and, kind of just really have the back of this organization and stand behind the logo. It was nice to see.
For the first time this season, Pedro Griffol's introductory press conference little GIF that I saved from the pulling on the jersey. This means something. I think for the first time under his leadership, we saw that come together on Saturday night.
That's true, Johnny, and obviously there's another part of the video there where he says we're ready to kick your ass. I don't know if Tim Anderson fully lived up to that portion of the introductory press conference speech. But, again, this will be a meme for years to come. TA is going to have to wade through it. I know he's on Twitter right now saying things that we can try and decipher or figure out what exactly that means. He's been unavailable
to the media.
It's best
not to try that.
He's been unavailable to the media to speak about this now for, post-game yesterday, pre-game and post-game today. Haven't seen any comments come from him. It'll be interesting to see if suspensions are issued prior to this Yankee series or if he's going to partake in that. There's definitely bad blood with him and a member of that Yankee squad. So we'll see what transpires here over the next couple of days. I was just sort of shocked at the same thing you were, Steve, though, is the united front of White Sox fans. No one here has been united on anything outside of hating this team. And it was just a great change of pace for where we're at in this season to be sitting here talking about something like this instead of the same loss for the 100th time, instead of the same way that they've, loaded the bases and not been able to advance a runner and score a run, or a bullpen meltdown late, or talking about having to trade away guys within your contention window. You've got wins and you've got a moment of actual clarity here where you can see this team actually band together and do something. I didn't like the discourse that you got from some of the larger media names that were trying to drive further stakes within the Chicago White Sox. There's Cubs fans that are in on this thing trying to offer their opinions, who should probably be worrying about or actually enjoying good baseball being played up on the north side right now.
Anthony, they don't care about the White Sox, though. Remember,
they don't.
None of those fucking losers have printed shirts or anything already showing, Tim getting punched or anything, because they don't care about the White Sox. I've been told, fucking losers.
Well, that's big if true, Steve. Big if true.
Yeah. I've got one last thing on this fight, and it goes back to Jose Ramirez's comments. We kind of touched on the tag issue, and I think we were in agreement there. Go back and watch the replay. I don't think that tag specifically was all that, hard, malicious, any of that. And then if you're going to go and also just on that, if you're going to reference the one on Friday, it's not like he was breaking a guy's wrist to get it off the bag. It's like that, just where it came down. Sand just happened to come off the bag. So I don't understand what the whole deal was about that. If that was a factor in the tag portion of that comment. What I wanted to get to is, has Tim Anderson been disrespecting the game for a long while now? Jose Ramirez posited that. I don't know if that's true. Your guys' thoughts?
I mean, I think it's all subjective. I know there's obviously going to be a lot of people, and I think from a generational standpoint, that don't like the bat toss and some of those types of things. But, the fact of the matter is, it's not the same game that it was in 1950, 1960. So this whole thing about him disrespecting the game, I don't see it. Honestly, I mean, there are some things that I think can be a little annoying at times. I think he doesn't always pick his spots well with when he wants to show emotion. I always think the context matters personally. to when you do that, and when you quote unquote try to change the game and all of that. But again, if we're talking about tags here, disrespecting the game of baseball, it's a bang bang play at second base on a ball that was hit in the corner. This isn't a pickoff play at first base where the first baseman catches the ball and makes a conscious effort to smack a guy in the ribs. You don't have the ability, you don't have the time to do that on that play at second base.
You can't even see it because you're looking for the ball first.
Exactly. Exactly. So this whole argument that Jose Ramirez was making about this is so fucking flimsy. But just great, greater picture here. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that think that, some of his antics, if you want to call them that, or how demonstrative Tim is on the field, is disrespecting the game. And if that's the way you want to look at things, if that's the lens that you choose to look at things, that's your choice here. I always try to, like I said, look at things from the context and trying to understand the situation that is going on right there. And as far as what I saw yesterday, to say that that's disrespecting the game of baseball, give me a fucking break.
Look, if you want to say Tim Anderson's been dog shit this year, sure, you can say that. If you want to say that the White Sox shouldn't have been running their mouths for where they're at in the standings, you can say that. If you wanted to come out and say, I don't like Tim Anderson, you can say that if you're Jose Ramirez. I just fucking hate that guy. But don't try and serve it up with some of this, he's disrespecting the game thing. At least for me, I look back to, certain things. Yeah, you can do everything that Steve prefaced with the bat flips and all that other stuff. One of the big arguments against Tony La Russa was that he was going to, stifle some of that stuff from a young core and guys like TA. And I thought out of most of the White Sox roster, TA and TLR got along fairly well. There's a lot of positive comments that went back and forth between the two of them. If they were able to coexist and there was no major comments from somebody that's been arguably one of the most vocal about, baseball staying at a certain pace or way, I don't think it's Ramirez's place to go in there and speak on behalf of baseball and say that Tim Anderson has been disrespecting the game when he's got teammates that, use the SpongeBob SquarePants walk-up song to come up to bat. They cradle babies around the bases. They've got a relief pitcher. I don't even know if he's still on their roster that, used to have the most spider tack in his glove per capita out of anybody in the game. And I really don't understand the sort of double standard there that Jose Ramirez is coming back at Tim Anderson with. Johnny, I think the answer to this question is no. I don't think Tim Anderson has disrespected the game. He's definitely disrespected White Sox fans with his performance on the field this season. But other than that, I haven't seen any sort of other disrespect between the lines on the diamond here.
Yeah, well, you got the one video that is surfaced sense of him, just this last homestand, sliding just a little too hard in for a, undoubtedly Cubs fan, pointing that out, that he, slid a little too hard in.
Oh, he ran fast. Sorry.
Yeah, great breaking up, but whatever. You can't do it anymore, really. Sliding into people, breaking up a double play. Steve and I were talking about that before the show. What was that 10 years ago? That was a totally legit play. I mean, shit. Why did Ozzie Smith jump over guys, right?
Yeah, did the umps call interference on that play, Johnny?
No, they didn't. They did not. But that's the video that gets dredged up on that. I go back to your first point there, Tony. If you want to go and say any of those things that Tim Anderson sucks this year, that the White Sox can't be running their mouths, and totally get it. You're grounded in those statements because they're facts only, right? If I was Jose Ramirez, I would have said Tim Anderson flaunts an ego that he cannot back up. He's writing checks that he can't cash right now. That's what I would have said. And he'd be right in saying that. Just go and look at the performance this year. The Baseball Reference page doesn't lie, right? But he had to go and take it to that step and he used these justifications and disrespecting the game, some of the things that he does on the bases. So what he's leaving that vague in terms of how he runs the bases. He's had a fucking knee injury, so he can't even run the bases as effectively as he probably wants to, or the White Sox want him to right now. And then B, talking about tagging people. Tag on him wasn't malicious there, play that started all of that. And then the one before, guess what? The umpires just fucked it up on that replay review, because guess what? He was called safe at first. We were talking about Friday night's play, right? If we're getting into that and saying that Tim Anderson was trying to, swipe the guy's hand off of the bag there. But once again, we can go back to that Sox on Tap rule. Any call that goes in the Sox favor, undoubtedly correct. And anything against us is bullshit. So that's where we stand here at Sox on Tap. But overall, I haven't really seen much more of that really, backs up Jose Ramirez's statement, which he, in my opinion, intentionally left a little bit vague there at the top of that when he was trying to, give his spiel regarding that, get the first word in the post-game comments on Saturday. So that's where I leave it at that. Interesting game, most entertaining game that I've seen of the year. But overall, like I said, results, we're a facts-only podcast, so go and look at the results. 8-5 this year. White Sox win the season series over the Clevelands. Take 2 of 3 this weekend series, win that over the Clevelands. And that's a team that is still in the hunt. Those graphics are always great, in the hunt, right? You're talking about that. There's no shot in hell they're getting a wild card spot, so you got to win the AL Central, right? And the Twins are going to do it by middling and just staying put at the deadline, whereas the Guardians went and traded off one of their starters. So they do frequently at the deadline. And while Cleveland has this clip to go back on, and even, like I said, even White Sox fans, all of MLB fans are going to clown on Tim Anderson for this, and understandable. Clip itself is what it is. Let's look at it in context. And Steve's favorite, sort of assertion there. And when I look at it in that light, I was proud to be a White Sox fan this weekend.
Very eloquently put, Jonathan. Very eloquently put. It's, I guess they will have to take a little bit of solace in having that clip and playing it all winter for the 75th consecutive winter when they don't get to celebrate with a trophy and a parade. And that's just a goddamn shame.
Hate to see it on some levels. That said, Cleveland's got all these fun clips about, hating the White Sox. They've got their locker room clip from the other year where they celebrated their way to their own death.
It's it's just such a shame that the guy that posted that, whatever, they were unearned runs, but he was on the mound while that thing unraveled on him today. So that's a little karmic justice, in my opinion.
And it's also interesting, I think, looking at and thinking about that locker room celebration that they had last year and Class A's little comments there, and then now all of this stuff. It almost feels like this, Sox Cleveland rivalry now is starting to ratchet itself back up to where it was back when I was in my youth, in my formative years in the early to mid 90s there. And granted, I think neither team is realistically looking like a perennial playoff team for the time being. Obviously, I think we all know where the Sox are at right now, but this is the type of thing that could carry over now, having 2 years in a row of some theatrics going on and just a lot of jawing back and forth here that could make these games in 2024, when these teams square off, very interesting and appointment television.
Adding on to that point, Steve, going back not just this past Saturday night, but the one before, when we're on the south side there, and you've got Eloy Jimenez, and among others, rocking the baby at first base, Josh Naylor there before he went on the injured list. By the way, Josh Naylor's out, injured there. that kind of thing, you feel like, whenever you look at the White Sox and everybody says, oh, they're lifeless and they have no sense of, team, and even go back to Jose Abreu's comments about this team's not a family. There's one thing they can unite on. They definitely don't like the Cleveland Guardians. So I'm with you in that camp, Steve, that this thing's ratcheting up a little bit. You're still going to see some of that position player cast of characters there, right? Aloy's going to be back. Tim most likely is going to be back after not getting shipped to the deadline. I would imagine they pick up that option for next year. You've got Luis Robert, obviously, there. He doesn't really do a whole lot of talking there, but he, is a, damage inflictor against any team that he plays against, really. So he's in that mix. Yohan Moncada is still there. Feel like they've got a little bit of a bond there when you're talking about that like ilk of players that are within that core that I just mentioned of position players sticking around. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm with you in that camp, Steve, and I'm looking forward to the next time the Sox and Guardians meet, which will be in 2024.
I definitely think it's good for the AL Central. As Steve pointed out, appointment television. We need that type of thing, especially if it's going to be a rough year or two. But I feel like this goes back more than 2 years. I think it sort of starts with the White Sox celebrating on Cleveland's field when Steve was there. That sort of set this thing off. And I like that. There's some storylines that you can follow through this. I think it's good for baseball, good for AL Central baseball to have these two teams sort of hate each other. You sort of had this brewing with Detroit a little bit, and I think that was more somewhat focused around Jose Abreu more than anything else. But I like the fact that we can collectively hate Cleveland as White Sox fans here for the next year. It's good to have some unification for this group.
I'm with you. Steve's name puts it very well there. Cleveland hater. Don't forget 2 capital L's.
The Cleveland Guardians, Indians, losers, franchise, whatever you want to call them, fuck them. Now and forever. As a Sox fan, you should always, always hate these sons of bitches. And what we have seen take place here this weekend now just should add more fuel onto that fire. And as I talked about early on here, I want all the bad things in the game of baseball to happen to those losers that play at the Mistake by the Lake.
I think that's a good way to wrap up our kind of Cleveland segment of this. Obviously, recapping the weekend here. White Sox take the series 2 games of 3, season series 8-5.
Didn't they have the witch that came over here to try and hex us too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The Mike Clevenger. Yeah, right. All of that. Now I'm hoping that mutual option gets exercised because, hey, say what you want about him. He went 2-1 against those Guardians this year. So don't look at it. But 3rd best starting pitcher, and one of them's not on the team anymore by WAR. And you're going calculating those numbers. We can talk about that at a later time, but that's just another, kind of spoke in the wheel that is this White Sox Cleveland rivalry here. All right, we've got Southside Ron chime in, says, hi friends, how's it going over here? We're having ourselves a Cleveland hate fest, so it's going pretty well over here, Ronald. Thanks for tuning in. Let's jump into the next thing here. I didn't have too many more. One last thing from this weekend was that kudos to Steve Stone for bringing up a Bronx Tale on Friday night's broadcast, because it was in regards to a play that the White Sox challenged and then were able to get overturned. Whatever. Tim Anderson obviously disrespecting the game with a very hard tag in Jose Ramirez's world. But the White Sox took a chance. Hey, I took a chance. That was a quote that he brought up from that. So I enjoyed that thoroughly. Other than that, moving on from this, I had Sox posting new faces, Colson Montgomery content. Guys, I'm not ready to go back to this level of prospect praise, so to say. They're suspects, man. That's where I stand with it.
So you're not enjoying all of the Colson Montgomery highlights. You're not enjoying, Kai Bush and who else we got out there?
Noah Schultz.
I heard he's the new ace, guys. I heard he is the new ace of the Chicago White Sox, coming soon to 35th and Shields. There's just all sorts of names, all sorts of prospect names out there that are getting so much attention. I'm surprised you're not all in on these guys, Johnny.
It's not that I don't want them to do well, man. We've been through this song and dance before, though.
Prospects? Talking
Yeah.
about prospects?
Yeah, that's where we're at. And man, like I said, I really hope it works out. But and you know what? I just want to say this, that it is not about the players individually themselves. It's not that I dislike Colson Montgomery. It's not that I don't want to hear about Edgar Quero and his adjustment to Double-A Birmingham. It's that I don't trust White Sox player development to get these guys into a place to being consistent major league contributors while wearing a White Sox jersey at the corner of 35th and Shields, not in Charlotte, not down in Birmingham, not in Kannapolis, any of those places. The ACL, we've got a couple, we traded international slot money to the Dodgers. I know Steve's favorite thing. For a pair of low-level pitching prospects. But we're talking about, we've got people in our replies on Sox on Tap about a Dodgers prospect, account that graded those guys their highest arms of the ACL. I'm sorry. I cannot trust that to be developed into major league talent at 35th and Shields. It's got to happen there because think about Oscar Colas, all the great things we heard about him in his ascension. And he had to have an extended AAA stint this year. Guy who's supposed to be the starting right fielder, the everyday right fielder for this White Sox team. I'm sorry. And he guess what? He was also a top 100 prospect. So save me any billing that you're giving these guys. Yoan Moncada was a former number 1 overall prospect. I just cannot buy into it as a combination of past performance and then White Sox player development still remaining as is from the, core that produced said past performance.
I think that's pretty spot on with where I'm at on this. I enjoy, seeing Colson Montgomery smacking baseballs around. Noah Schultz had some real nice arm side run on some changeups yesterday down in Kannapolis, and it's nice to see those kinds of things. But like you said, Jonathan, we went through this not that long ago. We went through this where 3 different guys, Yoan Moncada, Eloy Jimenez, and Luis Robert Jr., were all top 5 prospects in the sport. And they simply haven't. Now, Luis Robert Jr. is starting to live up to that billing here, but the other ones simply have not. I remember a couple of years ago here, I don't remember if it was Baseball Prospectus or Baseball America, one of the ones that had a formula and an algorithm that they used to kind of grade organizational prospect depth at the time. And I think the collection of Sox prospects that they had, maybe like 2018, 2019, they ranked as like the top the top 5 farm systems ever since they started compiling all this data. And look at where this has panned out. So for anybody to be overly excited about where this is at because they had a jump from like maybe the 26 system up to like 13 now because of these couple of trades. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I'm not going back to watching games from the blimp on top of the Birmingham Barons Stadium or watching Winston-Salem, dash baseball. I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. So it's very much wait and see. I Twittered this yesterday. I don't ask for a whole lot in life anymore. Just please let Colson Montgomery be good. When he gets here, hopefully that pans out. Continue looking at the numbers here, seeing the progression. It's going to be fascinating to see this second go around in Birmingham, how he develops now, and if he's going to continue this upward trajectory, because there's people now talking that going into the season next year, he's going to be a top 10 prospect in the sport. That talk is already starting here, but let's see it when he gets here. Just continue to perform down in the minor leagues, and not everybody in this fan base be so overly invested in watching these highlights. I think that is basically where everybody needs to be right now. be cautious about it. You can be optimistic. You can want guys to be successful, but you can't anticipate it because of who is in charge.
If prospect rankings panned out as they're supposed to be, the White Sox would have been a what Rick Hahn had spelled out, they'd
be the Barbs,
a consistent contender, right? Sustained success, all that stuff. You're seeing how it's panning out right now. So I'm with you on that. I think that was a good summation of it. Tony, I wanted to get to you a little bit. You're a big Jake Burger guy. I think everyone in the White Sox fan base could root for this guy, just given his story. Thoughts on moving him away now that some analysts have praised the deal on the White Sox front because they didn't think that they'd be able to elicit a Jake Eater type from the Miami Marlins there. That's still, I put that in the same folder as all of the wait and see with all of these other prospects there. And just because John Heyman said it's good doesn't mean it's going to be good in 2025 for the White Sox. That's where I'm at. But I wanted to get your take on that because we kind of glossed over it on the last time that you and I were here.
I mean, John Heyman can say whatever he wants to about Jake Eater. I know Jeff Passan wrote that Yohan Moncada was going to be a phenom that was going to change the game of baseball with all of his tools. And we've seen where that's panned out to at this point. Every single one of these guys is one injury away from potentially never making it to the major leagues.
Jake Eater has injury history, by the way.
Yes, he does. Not only are they one injury away, we had Alec Hansen was supposed to be a top of the rotation arm during this rebuild. I remember listening to his show with Chuck Garfien, and he talked about, he wanted to be up ahead of Lucas Giolito and Michael Kopech and be the ace back when we were in this last rebuild that was leading up to this contention window, and, never really panned out and just sort of fizzled out. And I don't even think he's in
now
baseball
out of
anymore.
baseball entirely. Yeah.
So moving a guy and this team, my point is still the same. I don't believe it until they get to the major leagues and actually make an impact. If there was one thing I think White Sox fans lost patience for in the last 5 years, it's being sold on prospects, not only just through our own local media coverage, but the national media as well. If you take a pulse of White Sox fans right now, the resounding thought behind all of this is we don't want to sit through this again. We were promised contention now. Johnny, you and I went in depth on this on the last show, talking about retool versus full rebuild. Sure, a full rebuild might be the answer. Tear it all down, get rid of Rick Hahn, all that stuff that we want, and then wait to develop, have a whole new development. We're so impatient at this point for a team that's fun. You look at what's going on over on the north side of town right now, and it's disgusting how they have went into sort of this retool mode and brought some of these guys up and are now competing again at a higher level than we are in the middle of what was supposed to be a time where we're competitive. So it's doable. The difference there was they spent a lot of money. They brought in Dansby Swanson. They brought in Cody Bellinger. That's a different level of talent than what you've seen this White Sox roster supplement itself with. We've had the same problems that a lot of people have complained about for a long time, and there's been a refusal to fix it. I think when you look at this Jake Burger trade, here was a guy that was easy to root for, a fan favorite, hit a lot of home runs, which we've had problems hitting home runs. You know how much Steve loves the multi-home run strategy. And that was a guy that provided some of that stuff. Yeah, I know you need young, controllable pitching because you just got rid of half of your starting rotation. This trade still makes not a lot of sense to me. And when you bring in the aspect of this that I don't think we talked about either, Johnny, that the Rays GM, what is her name, Kim Ning, goes on the Marlins broadcast and talks about how Kenny Williams made that deal. I think that adds a whole nother layer of complexity for White Sox fans to ask who the fuck is in charge right now in this front office, and why are these decisions being made? You go back to Rick Hahn's comments about how this was a strict baseball move, and like that it's deliberate when he said that. This was a strict baseball move, unlike all the other moves we made. Why was it off the cusp? Well, maybe Rick Hahn had no fucking clue that it was supposed to be Tim Anderson or Jake Berger going over there. Maybe it was supposed to be Eloy. Maybe it was supposed to be Tim Anderson. Maybe they weren't even, maybe Rick Hahn wasn't even on the fucking phone with Tampa Bay. Maybe it was Kenny Williams doing something completely off the radar from this thing. And that's not the first time you've seen something like this happen with the White Sox. And that's why we need to wear our sunglasses to hide the shock in our eyes when this shit happens.
Yeah, Steve and I did do a little bit of digging into that on Thursday's After Dark show. So if you want a little bit more on the whole trade deadline, how it went down, me and Steve discussed all of those elements, especially Kim Ing bringing up the Kenny Williams name, dropping that on the Bally Sports Miami broadcast there. So that's honestly a thought for another day. We're getting to an hour mark here, but Steve, weigh in with some closing thoughts on that front there.
Yeah. So Anthony, one of the things that you talked about in comparison with that other team that shares the city of Chicago here, remember 2 years ago when all their fans were having an aneurysm because they were trading away these guys and going through this retooling process. One of the things that they did, they got rid of Jason McLeod, who was their scouting director, who was the guy that helped assemble the players that won a World Series. Somebody that actually put together a championship team. And they said, we are going to go in a different direction because what we are doing isn't working. So the greater point that is being made here about not trusting those that are in charge and those that are involved in the White Sox organization, if other teams can go out there and take people that have hardware on their fingers because of their labor, but the White Sox can't do anything like that.
Accountability.
What reason? Accountability is certainly not a problem in the White Sox organization. I can assure you of that.
That's a buzzword to bring up Steve's Ken Williams impression.
I was actually aiming for that, and it worked. So
it's like a command.
Yeah,
we've got our command center over here with some sound bites. That's almost one of them on Impact.
But it just goes to show that this is not a serious organization. When you can't go and you can't remove people that aren't being successful at their jobs. Yet other organizations, every other organization seemingly not named the Colorado Rockies, can go out there and take people that are actually have credentials, that actually have something they can put on a resume. And they say, you know what, the way you're starting to do things, it's not working anymore. Things need to be changed. We need new, fresh ideas. And yet here we are, the same morons. Chris Getz, he's still here.
Unfriggin' believable.
Nick Hostetler, the guy that was the architect behind these bad drafts of Rebuild 2.0, he is still here.
You gotta be bleeping me.
And we wonder why nothing on the scouting and player development front is changing. Talk about it all the time. What is the definition of insanity? You should probably just have the White Sox logo next to that in, a dictionary, thesaurus, whatever printed document you want to have that espouses that quote.
Yeah, I think that's well put there. And that's getting to the end of the show. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Sunday Funday. I think the moral of the story here, if I'm going to kind of wrap up for some housekeeping, is that while we acknowledge as White Sox fans that there are organizational issues at hand here, which we just discussed for the back half of our show, we this weekend can be proud to unify against hating Cleveland and putting a proverbial nail in their coffin for hopes of the postseason this year. Because, my God, I would much rather have, if I'm a Cleveland fan, I would have much rather have had Jose Ramirez be the one to be on the bad end of a clip that's going to be circulated on social media, but take 2 of 3 and be back, in this thing. Last week, you go back to the weekend before too, on the South side, they lost, they split that series, but still 4-game series. That's with where they're at. And after the White Sox having a massive sell off at the deadline, that's when you got to have 3 of 4 from, if you're actually serious about contending. And this is the lowly, piss poor, piece of shit White Sox 2023 team that we've all, shat on all year here. But the fact that they were able to go out there and take it to Cleveland with 2 capital L's. Hey, cheers to that. I'll drink to that on Sunday Funday.
That is the carrying thought of the weekend here. The fact that the White Sox did their part over the last 2 weekends here to ensure that loser franchise from Brohio continues to guard the longest championship drought in professional sports. Suck it.
There's a couple other teams out there, Steven, that you dislike that also have some running streaks. But would you put Cleve? Just one last question for you: out of all the teams that you hate, is Cleveland's drought the one that you're most proud of throwing back out there?
Undoubtedly,
there are other ones. Undeniably, I wasn't sure if
Undoubtedly.
the Minnesota streak.
Yeah, would the Minnesota
beat
playoff
that.
streak fall just below that then?
Yeah, rank up for us real quick before we get out of here.
Yeah. Listen, if we're going to rank the hierarchy of hate here,
Yes.
as I like to do, the Indians/Guardians World Series drought getting to 75 years right now, being the longest in professional sports. That's undoubtedly number one. Then right below that, you've got the Minnesota Twins and their 18 consecutive playoff losses, the longest in North American pro sports history. That's definitely a number 2 right there. And let me tell you something. It's not easy being a White Sox fan, especially these days, but knowing that these 2 fucking losers have those distinctions, you know what? You can shit on the Sox all you want. Nobody shits on them more than we do. As I said earlier on here, nobody hates the White Sox more than true White Sox fans because we've been born into this. This is what we are accustomed to. But we at least don't have those distinctions.
I love it. I think that's a perfect way to wrap up this edition of Sunday Funday with Sox on Tap. We appreciate everybody coming in here, dropping in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube at On Tap Sportsnet so you can join the conversation. Also like us on Facebook there as well. And check out OnTapSportsnet.com for all your Chicago sports literature and podcasting needs. You can find us on social media at Sox on Tap and at On Tap Sportsnet. All right, Yankees, coming to town this week. I'll see you out at the ballpark, and we'll be back with some shows, touch on what goes down between the Sox and Yanks this week. So until next time, White Sox forever.
White Sox forever.
White Sox for life.